Mauricio Pochettino has named a 23-player squad for the upcoming CONCACAF Nations League Final Four, which will take place at SoFi Stadium here in Los Angeles. The U.S. will face Panama and then either Mexico or Canada. There are some notable absences due to fitness, like Pepe, Balogun, and Dest, but pretty much everybody else you would expect to be in there is in there, like Pulisic, Musa, McCanny, Weah, Adams, Jedi Robinson, Josh Sargent, etc. There are also 6 MLS players: Schulte, Stefan, Ream, Luna, Ajiman, and Brian White. That's more than we're making it in Greg Berhalter's last few squads. So what did you make of it?
You said 6 MLS players, Mosse?
Yeah.
Oh, we're screwed. Oh boy. Oh, this is the end of times here. So when this thing dropped, there wasn't a whole lot of surprises to me, and I think people will bring up Brendan Aronson or the Aronson brothers, I guess at this point now, Zendejas, who we had talked about on the last pod, and these types of players. I think what was interesting is this is going to be, notwithstanding the injuries that you mentioned up top, we have known about those all along. But the return of Tyler Adams, and this is going to be as close to a full strength team as Pochettino has had, and yet he is putting in some interesting players, in the likes of Diego Luna from Real Salt Lake, and obviously Brian White from Vancouver, who we're going to talk also about later on in the show. But I think this is a direct response to the January camp. Timing is everything, Mosse, in life. And while at times the January camp has been derided, camp cupcake and all that kind of stuff, in this moment, under Pochettino, these guys came in and they made the best of their situation. And maybe there's a recency bias with Pochettino, but I also think it demonstrates that it's not just lip service when he talks about Major League Soccer and the ability for him, if he sees quality and he sees talent, he doesn't care where you are playing. And I know when he came out and said that, a lot of people were saying, yeah, he has to say it. But the proof is in the pudding, and certainly here in the players that he has brought in. It's also, let's be honest, a reflection of the fact that there is still a competition when it comes to goalkeeping. And, with Zach Steffen and Patrick Schulte coming in, Matt Turner is the incumbent. So all in all, I'm excited about this. We've talked about, I think, Josh Sargent coming in and probably being the striker, and certainly what he is doing from a club perspective, but being able to translate it here. And this is ultimately 2 competitive games against Panama first, and then either Canada or Mexico, with an opportunity for this team under Pochettino to do, admittedly, what has been done before in winning Nations League, but for him to have that moment of raising a trophy with the confetti, with the music, and kind of showing that he can live up to, and maybe going forward relative to the World Cup in 2026, do more. So I'm happy with this with this roster here. Anything stand out to you that I missed?
Well, from a purely roster composition standpoint, I know I've been banging this drum a lot lately, but I do think this roster lends itself to a back 3. You have 5 center backs in Carter Vickers, Chris Richards, Mark McKenzie, Tim Ream, and Austin Trusty. Also, this was a complaint of mine with Greg Berhalter, and it's carried over to Mauricio Pochettino. I don't know if you need 3 center forwards. I think he should have chosen one between White and Ajiman, and then brought an Aronson or a Zendejas. I know they're listing Yunus Musa as a forward, which is interesting in and of itself, but I just think it's lacking in wingers and has an excess of center forwards.
Yeah, Pochettino did address the Yunus Musa thing, and he said, don't read too much into the way that they're listed. And I don't think he's playing coy or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, I think the Ajiman thing was, this opened up eyes, again, for a position that is of need. And I think he has a recognition that, okay, it's not I guess it's a reward for these guys. Whether they've been there only a couple times or it was their first time. Obviously, Ajima came in and was really, really good in that January camp in terms of doing what we want our strikers to do, which is ultimately score goals. We mentioned Brian White, Diego Luna, I think, for his grit and almost his personality, and for someone like Tanner Tessman and these types of players that are kind of new to the national team program, and obviously most people are new to Pochettino. But I wasn't bent out of shape that Brendan Aronson or Alejandro Zendejas is not there. Again, what they are doing from a club perspective is great in many cases, whether it's Josh Sargent, whether it's Brendan Aronson, or whether it's Zendejas. But the ability to translate that to the national team is ultimately what is going to dictate whether you will continue to get called in. And the national team is not going to adjust for you. You have to adjust with the national team. In particular, if someone like Zendejas playing in a position where there also already is some very, very good quality talent and some depth.
And when Pochettino took over, I did identify Brendan Aronson as one of the players that would really benefit. He felt like a Pochettino player to me with his energetic style. So I look a little bit stupid right now because he didn't even get called up. But, we mentioned Mosse being listed as a forward. Gio Reyna was listed as a midfielder. So you could argue those cancel out because Reyna can certainly play farther up the field. And Pochettino made a very interesting comment about Gio. He said, we brought him in now because we're not going to have him in the summer for the Gold Cup, because remember, Dortmund are in the expanded Club World Cup. Same issue with Juventus, by the way. They're in that, so McKennie and Weah will not be able to play in the Gold Cup for the U.S. this summer. So it's interesting that was already part of Pochettino's thinking here.
It's going to piss me off if Gio Reyna is with Dortmund in the Club World Cup, doesn't play, and then gets maybe sold and moves on to someplace else, right?
Quite honestly, if I'm Dortmund, I would release him for the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
He has a better chance of increasing his value that way.
Exactly. Yeah. But going back to Brendan Aronson, the point with Brendan Aronson, I love him as a player, but I think we have to be honest and say, has he reached his ceiling? And if that is his ceiling, is that good enough for a national team going into a World Cup less than a year and a half away in the summer of 2026? Or is there potentially somebody else that is better or has a higher ceiling and in the next year in the next year and a half can catch and surpass Brendan Aronson? So, and that doesn't just apply to him, it applies to others out there.
And we've talked about this. What an opportunity for Josh Sargent. Talk about a player who you're hoping the club form does carry over to the national team.
But again, they're going to get out there on the field. And I do think that Josh Sargent is going to be, and fairly and rightfully so, because of what he has done already with the national team. But again, with that open position, he's going to be given the benefit of the doubt. But, you have Brian White, Ajiman, and, some others that can kind of fake it up there. But yeah, I think it's going to be Josh Sargent. And if it doesn't work out, there's a couple of players that should be licking their chops given the situation right now. From a striker perspective.
Now, I think this squad is good enough to beat Panama, Mexico, or Canada, but is it good enough to beat Chelsea, or are you just a delusional American?
I probably am a delusional American, and raise my hand. I wear it on my sleeve, and sometimes it impacts or infects the way that I talk about the team. But guilty. Sue me. Do the kids say sue me anymore? I don't know.
Yeah, we got an Ask Alexi question recently about how the U.S. would fare against some of the top European clubs. You said they could beat Chelsea. Yeah. The English media picked up on that, and you got roasted over there.
Yeah, they spelled my name right, and I am creating content for them if that's what they want. What else here relative to this lineup here in this Nations League that is upon us?
Well, no, I mean, all roads, as we know, are building towards the 2026 World Cup. Cavan Sullivan, not in this squad, but he had a quote that I know you found.
Who's Cavan Sullivan again, Mosse?
15-year-old who plays for the Philadelphia Union.
Yes. So we, and probably not just the American culture, but we go gaga over young talent. Wunderkinds, right? And Cavan Sullivan is no different in the heads that he is turning. And for those that didn't see it, I'll read his quote. And this was, I think, to FIFA. He told this too. He said, "For my generation, it's definitely special. It's definitely pretty special to have the FIFA World Cup here in our country. Even cooler to be in my backyard." Obviously, he plays in Philadelphia. "Hopefully, I'll be participating in it. I know I'll still be at a young 16 years old. However, anything is possible. I'm ready to work for that." Okay, so I don't know how you feel, Mosse. The chances of Cavan Sullivan being on this team are slim and none. The chances of him being involved in the World Cup are slim and none unless he is going to be a ball boy at some point for the World Cup. And that's okay. But I actually love the fact that this is what he's talking about. This is what he's thinking. And in a much more, I guess, mature way than you would expect, he's also recognizing how important the World Cup is in his backyard and in the United States, and how different and special and unique it is to be able to play in a World Cup. Because he may go on and star for the U.S. in future World Cups, but to be able to have the opportunity to play, and I can certainly speak from experience, in a World Cup in your own country, that is rarefied air. And I think he recognizes it. He's going to have to do a whole lot over the next year and a half to even be considered for something like this, but I'm okay with it. I don't think it's delusional. In the way that we constantly talk on the State of the Union, Mosse, whether it's about MLS or soccer in general in the United States, about doing big, bold, dare I say it, arrogant things. I like it in entities that do it. I also like it in people and humans. And Cavan Sullivan, even at a young age, he is thinking big. He is thinking bold. Some people may say he's thinking arrogant, but that's how special things get done, and that's how special players are made. Who knows if he lives up to it, but I love him kind of putting down that marker and saying, I know it's only a year and a half away, and I got a lot of work to do, but that's still a dream. It's a worthy dream for someone like him, and that he said it publicly, hats off to him.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.